If you want to understand why the last 6 weeks have seemed so chaotic for the Tories, really you've got to go back to Partygate, Boris Johnson's departure, Liz Truss's lettuce era, that at that point, in the eyes of a lot of the public, their mind was already made up, or at least they were on a direction of travel towards giving Labour a chance.
Because we're a government in waiting, and they're an opposition in waiting.
This all started with Rishi Sunak thinking he could pull off one of the greatest comebacks in British electoral history and overturn a massive Labour lead. And then he went out in the rain to tell the nation that he was going to call the election.
Earlier today, I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament.
And it went very downhill very fast.
Are you captaining a sinking ship going into this election?
There was the fact that Rishi Sunak returned home early from the D-Day celebrations.
On reflection, that was a mistake and I apologise.
But he returned home early to do an ITV News interview.
Incredible, but it just ran over everything.
I'm sure it was
So apologies for keeping you.
In that ITV News interview, he was asked what he'd gone without as a kid.
Famously, Sky TV.
Okay.
One thing that no one thought would dominate 2 weeks of the campaign was the fact that politicians were placing bets on the date of the election.
I saw the headline and I was like, what? I mean, do these people have a death wish?
This is really just us all seeing the final explosion of a long-running disaster. The Conservatives were the ones who pulled the switch, and yet were scrambling to find people to stand in a lot of seats and didn't even seem to have much of a strategy in terms of how they're going to fight it. Probably the biggest uncontrollable factor that has destroyed Rishi Sunak's campaign is the arrival of Nigel Farage.
These boring idiots that lead the Labour and Conservative parties are not worth the space.
If that hadn't happened, the Conservatives could be looking at maybe 40, 50 more seats.
It's quite clear that a vote for reform, all it's going to do is help Keir Starmer.
This is just such an incredible thing that was out of Sunak's control, but Farage himself has said that he would probably have been in the States campaigning with Donald Trump for a November US election. That core decision to go early is now looking like a really catastrophic call. Even before this election was called, most of the country had already made up their mind that they wanted a change from the Conservatives.
I'm asking if you would confess to us tonight, even just a small amount of embarrassment.
And voters love to back a winner. They can see that Keir Starmer's ahead in the polls and they quite want to be in on the winning side. Humans are fascinating, weird characters, but there's that sense that when someone's time is up, when they no longer have the ability to change things, that they are just no longer in power. They technically have the office, but they're not there. And I think that more than anything is what you've seen in this campaign.